Africa, a land of breathtaking beauty and unimaginable potential. But what if I told you that the very geography that gives this continent its charm also holds it hostage? Yes, Africa's vast deserts, fragmented rivers, and smooth coastlines aren't just features of the landscape. They're barriers shaping the lives of over 1 billion people. It's a story where natural wealth collides with trade barriers, tropical diseases, and a colonial legacy that still casts its shadow. How can a continent so rich in natural resources remain so economically stagnant? And could it be that the challenges you see on the surface are only scratching the surface of something much deeper? If you think geography is just about maps and mountains, think again. This is about the unseen forces shaping a continent's destiny. Africa's wealth is a paradox wrapped in complexity. Blessed with immense natural resources, gold, diamonds, and cobalt, the continent remains trapped in poverty by GDP per capita and HDI metrics. The reasons aren't superficial. They stem from deep-seated challenges like geographic isolation, limited urbanization, and enduring health crises. These issues intertwine, forming a cycle that seems almost impossible to break. Geography plays the role of an unforgiving gatekeeper. Vast deserts like the Sahara and towering mountain ranges isolate regions, making trade and connectivity arduous. Tropical diseases further exacerbate this struggle, draining both human potential and economic productivity. Meanwhile, urbanization, often the catalyst for growth in other regions, progresses slowly, leaving Africa's vast potential frustratingly untapped. Even Africa's natural wealth isn't a straightforward blessing. The colonial legacy left fragmented borders and infrastructure that prioritize extraction over development. Resource abundance often fuels exploitation and corruption, compounding the economic divide. And as these layers of hardship build, one can't help but question, what role does geography itself play in shaping Africa's destiny? Building on Africa's paradox of wealth and poverty, its geography adds yet another layer of complexity. The vast Sahara Desert serves as a formidable divide, isolating sub-Saharan Africa from the northern regions. While its smooth coastlines captivate the imagination, they lack the deep harbors essential for maritime trade. This natural separation leaves many regions disconnected, hindering opportunities for economic integration and growth. Furthermore, the rivers that traverse the continent present their own challenges. Unlike Europe's easily navigable waterways, Africa's rivers, though mighty, are often disrupted by waterfalls and rapids. The Congo River, for instance, stretches across vast territories yet remains treacherous for consistent trade routes. These geographic quirks, while intriguing, create significant hurdles for uniting resources, people, and markets. Consequently, this geographic isolation shapes not only trade, but also societal progress. It slows cultural and economic exchanges, creating pockets of stagnation where opportunity struggles to reach. The question, then, is how a continent can rise above such barriers. Perhaps the answer lies in addressing these challenges through innovation, especially as Africa confronts its trade limitations head-on. As Africa grapples with geographic challenges, its trade limitations become painfully evident. The lack of navigable rivers and natural harbors stifles maritime trade, driving up costs and reducing global competitiveness. Ports like Lagos and Mombasa may serve as vital hubs, but they are exceptions rather than the rule. For landlocked nations, the situation worsens, as they face steep transportation costs that further isolate their economies. Moreover, the infrastructure to support trade is often inadequate. Colonial-era railroads were designed to extract resources rather than connect regions, leaving a fragmented network ill-suited for modern commerce. This disjointed system inflates the cost of moving goods, undermining local industries and discouraging international investment. Trade barriers, both natural and man-made, become insurmountable obstacles. Such trade limitations don't just affect economies, they reshape livelihoods. Farmers struggle to get their produce to market, while industries lose out on critical supply chains. And as these barriers persist, Africa's ability to compete in the global market diminishes. Yet, amidst these challenges, the continent's immense natural wealth begs the question, why hasn't it led to prosperity? Africa's abundance of natural resources seems like a golden ticket to prosperity, yet it often leads to the opposite. The continent is rich in precious commodities like gold, diamonds, and cobalt, which power global industries from jewelry to electronics. However, instead of fostering widespread development, these resources frequently fuel exploitation and corruption. This paradox raises the question: why does wealth in the ground not translate to wealth above it? The colonial legacy is a significant part of the answer. During colonization, resources were extracted for foreign profit, leaving little infrastructure or development in their wake. Today, this legacy persists in many forms, as resource wealth often flows out rather than staying within. Industries meant to benefit local economies remain stunted, while corruption siphons off potential gains. It's a cycle that traps Africa in an economic bind. These challenges are compounded by global trade dynamics that disadvantage resource-rich nations. Over-reliance on raw exports leaves economies vulnerable to market fluctuations, while local industries struggle to grow. Understanding these dynamics opens the door to uncovering more fascinating truths. So, if you're captivated by stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's so much more to explore. Within Africa's vast resources and geographic challenges, health burdens strike a devastating blow to development. Tropical diseases like malaria and HIV rob millions of their potential, slashing life expectancy and weakening the workforce. These illnesses aren't just statistics. They're daily battles for countless families, draining resources and limiting opportunities. Without robust healthcare infrastructure, the cycle of poverty deepens. The impact extends far beyond individual health. Widespread illness reduces economic productivity, leaving industries understaffed and communities struggling to thrive. For example, agricultural workers, crucial to food production, are disproportionately affected by these diseases. This weakens food security and creates ripple effects that hinder progress. It's as if every step forward is met with a relentless pullback. Addressing these challenges demands more than just healthcare. It requires a unified effort to strengthen infrastructure, education, and accessibility. After all, how can a continent thrive if its people are not healthy enough to lead the way? This question becomes even more pressing as we explore the constraints that agriculture faces across Africa's diverse landscapes. When it comes to agriculture, Africa faces a unique set of constraints that hinder its potential for self-sufficiency. Limited arable land, coupled with fragmented plots, makes large-scale farming a daunting challenge. Adding to the struggle are the tsetse flies, notorious carriers of diseases that affect both livestock and humans. These barriers leave vast regions underutilized, while demand for food continues to rise. The ripple effects of these challenges are hard to ignore. Without reliable agricultural output, local markets remain underdeveloped, forcing many nations to rely on expensive imports. For rural communities, where farming is a primary livelihood, this translates to cycles of poverty and food insecurity. It's a situation where even the most fertile regions often fall short of their potential. Solutions to these constraints require more than innovative farming techniques. They demand infrastructure and policy changes that address the root of the problem. But how can these systems evolve when the roads, railways, and basic facilities needed to support agriculture are still relics of the colonial era? This brings us to the critical issue of infrastructure deficits, where the past continues to dictate the present. Africa's infrastructure deficits are a legacy of its colonial past, with networks designed for extraction rather than connection. Roads and railways often lead from mines to ports, ignoring the needs of local economies. For landlocked nations, these outdated systems exacerbate the challenges, making trade costly and inefficient. It's like trying to run a marathon on a crumbling track. This lack of connectivity creates a domino effect on economic development. Poor infrastructure isolates communities, limits access to markets, and stifles industrial growth. For instance, countries like Chad and Mali face exorbitant costs to transport goods, reducing their competitiveness in global markets. These barriers don't just block trade, they choke opportunities for progress. Overcoming these deficits requires a monumental shift in priorities. Modern infrastructure projects must focus on connecting people and industries rather than simply extracting resources. Yet, how can a continent bridge these gaps when its cultural and political landscape remains deeply fragmented? That's where the next layer of complexity begins to unfold. Africa's infrastructure struggles to support its growing potential, often feeling like a relic of another era. Colonial powers built roads and railways with one goal in mind: resource extraction. As a result, these networks rarely connect regions in ways that benefit local economies. Today, poor transportation systems limit trade, making it even harder for landlocked nations to access global markets. The lack of reliable infrastructure compounds existing challenges. For example, farmers often face insurmountable costs just to transport crops to urban markets. This inefficiency not only discourages production but also raises prices, creating barriers for both producers and consumers. It's a vicious cycle where underdeveloped roads and rails hinder economic growth at every turn. Improving infrastructure isn't just about building roads, it's about building futures. Reliable systems could unlock Africa's trade potential, connecting communities and fostering innovation. Yet, this is easier said than done in a continent divided by colonial borders and fragmented systems. These divisions highlight a deeper issue: how cultural and political fragmentation further impedes progress. Africa's story is one of contrasts, a continent where breathtaking geography and immense natural wealth coexist with profound challenges. But here's the thing: understanding these dynamics isn't just about facts. It's about unlocking a deeper perspective on how the world works. Now that you've discovered how geography shapes poverty, don't you wonder what other hidden truths are out there, waiting to be uncovered? Knowledge like this sets you apart, placing you among the few who seek to truly understand the world's complexities. What if this is just the beginning? What if diving into more insights like these could bring you closer to the wisdom and success you admire? Make sure you don't miss out on the journey. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You've just scratched the surface of a world waiting to be explored.